In the records of the Jackson, Mississippi Police Department, there exists a case that continues to stir up questions and shock due to its extreme violence, the case of Kiara Matthews. On March 15, 2023, in Jackson, Mississippi, 27-year-old Kiara Matthews' life was tragically and violently cut short. Kiara, a transgender woman who lived at South Point Apartments, had recently reached a significant achievement in her career. After completing an intensive 6-month program at Jackson Medical Training Institute, she earned her certification as a traveling certified nursing assistant, ranking among the top of her class. Her instructors would later praise her as a devoted, compassionate, and highly skilled healthcare provider. Born as Keith Matthews on August 3, 1995, to James and Maria Matthews, Kiara grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in South Jackson. The Matthews family, originally from Detroit, Michigan, moved to Mississippi in 1992 when James took a job as a mechanical engineer at Nissan's plant in Canton. Maria, a registered nurse at St. Dominic's Hospital, always encouraged her children to pursue careers in healthcare. The family, which also included Kiara's younger sister, 24-year-old Jessica Matthews, lived in a close-knit community and attended Greater Bethlehem Temple Church. Kiara began her transition at age 22, with her family's support despite their initial hesitations. She completed hormone therapy at the University of Mississippi Medical Center's gender clinic and maintained her job at local nursing homes throughout her transition. This experience allowed her to build expertise in patient care while saving money for her certification program. Her colleagues at Woodland Terrace Care Center, where she worked for 3 years, remembered her as a hardworking and dedicated healthcare worker, consistently receiving praise from patients and their families. On the evening of March 10th, Kiara created a profile on a popular dating app under the username KM95. The profile featured recent photos and detailed her interests in healthcare, community service, and R&B music. Shortly after joining the platform, she received a message from a user named Tyler D2000, later identified as Tyler Davis, a 22-year-old warehouse worker at Amazon's fulfillment center in Pearl, Mississippi. Tyler, originally from Meridian, Mississippi, had moved to Jackson 6 months prior. A background check later revealed a minor criminal record, including a dismissed misdemeanor charge for simple assault. Tyler lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment at the Pines complex and worked night shifts. In his free time, he used various dating apps and was described by coworkers as a quiet person who mostly kept to himself, though they noted he occasionally made derogatory comments about LGBT+ individuals. The initial conversation between Kiara and Tyler lasted for hours, revolving around their mutual interests in music and local entertainment. Over the next 5 days, they exchanged around 247 messages. These conversations remained lighthearted and flirtatious, without discussing Kiara's gender identity. They shared favorite local restaurants, music recommendations, and career goals. Tyler showed an interest in Kiara's healthcare work, while also revealing his aspiration to become a truck driver. On March 15th at 9:43 p.m., Tyler suggested meeting at Kiara's apartment for a Netflix and chill evening. Kiara agreed, providing her address. Security footage would later reveal Tyler arriving at the complex, parking his Honda Civic in the visitor section, and carrying a backpack, which would later be found to contain a loaded Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm handgun. The gun had been legally purchased from a local pawn shop 3 months prior, raising concerns about Tyler's intentions and the possibility of premeditation. According to police reports and Tyler's later confession, events began to unfold tragically around 11:20 p.m. After spending roughly 40 minutes watching a movie, Kiara and Tyler moved to her bedroom. Security footage from the apartment complex would later show Kiara's sister, Jessica Matthews, arriving at the apartment around 11:15 p.m. to drop off medical textbooks, planning a brief visit. The situation quickly escalated when Kiara and Tyler became physically intimate, and upon learning of Kiara's transgender identity, Tyler reacted violently. In his subsequent statement, he claimed to have been overwhelmed by emotional distress and felt deceived. Prosecutors would later argue that his response demonstrated premeditated violence, pointing to the presence of the weapon in his backpack. Crime scene investigators determined that Tyler retrieved the handgun from his backpack, which had been placed near the bed. According to ballistics reports, he fired 3 shots at close range. The first shot struck Kiara in the chest, penetrating her heart, while the second and third hit her abdomen and shoulder. Medical examiner Dr. Robert Wilson would later testify that the first shot was instantly fatal, causing death within seconds. The violence did not stop with Kiara. Upon hearing the gunshots, Jessica Matthews rushed to the bedroom, and Tyler, in what he later described as panic, turned the weapon on her. He fired 2 more shots, injuring her in the shoulder and abdomen. Security cameras in the apartment complex hallway recorded Jessica stumbling out of the apartment at 11:27 p.m., leaving a trail of blood as she sought help. Neighbors, including Michael Rodriguez and Sarah Thompson, immediately called 911 after hearing the gunshots. Their statements would later prove critical in establishing the timeline of events. Rodriguez, a former military medic, attempted to provide first aid to Jessica while waiting for emergency responders. Crime scene technicians would later document 5 spent shell casings in the apartment, all matching Tyler's weapon. The bedroom displayed signs of a struggle, with overturned furniture and blood spatter patterns consistent with the victim's wounds. DNA evidence collected from the scene would confirm the events described in Tyler's confession. The medical examiner's report detailed the severity of Kiara's injuries, with the fatal shot causing catastrophic damage to her heart and surrounding tissue. The other wounds, though severe, were non-fatal on their own. Toxicology reports showed no alcohol or drugs in either Kiara's or Tyler's system, contradicting initial speculation about substance involvement. Jessica Matthews survived her injuries but required urgent surgery at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. The surgical team, led by Dr. James Anderson, worked for 6 hours to repair damage to her liver and shoulder. She later underwent 3 more surgeries and months of physical therapy. Her testimony, recorded 1 week after the incident, would provide crucial details about the sequence of events. Surveillance footage from the apartment complex showed Tyler fleeing the scene at 11:29 p.m., just 2 minutes after Jessica exited the apartment. He left behind his backpack, which contained his wallet, identification, the dating app conversation still visible on his phone, and other personal items, which helped investigators quickly identify him. Although the gun was not found at the scene, it was later recovered from Tyler's apartment. The police response was quick, with the first units arriving at 11:33 p.m. Officers secured the crime scene and began collecting witness statements from neighbors. The emergency response team confirmed Kiara's death at the scene at 11:41 p.m., while Jessica was transported to the hospital by 11:45 p.m. Responding paramedics testified that her quick transport and immediate medical attention were critical to her survival. This horrific act of violence was later classified by prosecutors as a hate crime, though Mississippi law at the time did not include gender identity as a protected category. The investigation into Kiara Matthews' murder began immediately after the first officers arrived at South Point Apartments. Detective Sarah Martinez, a 12-year veteran of the Jackson Police Department's Homicide Division, took charge of the case. The initial crime scene assessment revealed a complicated situation that required thorough forensic analysis and quick action to capture the suspect. The first officers on the scene, Michael Thompson and David Rodriguez, secured the perimeter while emergency medical services attended to Jessica Matthews. The apartment complex's residents, disturbed by the gunshots and police activity, provided initial witness statements. Several reported hearing an argument, followed by multiple gunshots, then seeing a young man fleeing the scene. The Crime Scene Investigation Unit, led by Technical Sergeant James Wilson, began processing the scene at 12:15 a.m. They documented blood patterns, collected shell casings, and took photos of the crime scene. A major breakthrough occurred when investigators found an abandoned backpack containing Tyler Davis's ID and personal items. The phone found in the backpack became especially valuable as it displayed his conversations with Kiara on the dating app. Detective Martinez worked with the department's digital forensics unit to track Tyler's movements via electronic surveillance. City traffic cameras captured Tyler fleeing the apartment complex on foot before he obtained a bicycle from behind a nearby convenience store. The bicycle, later identified as stolen, had distinct red paint and lacked a rear reflector. By 2:30 a.m., investigators had developed an initial profile of Tyler Davis. His criminal record showed a prior assault charge, and his employer confirmed his job at Amazon. More troubling, however, were reports from his co-workers who mentioned his recent hostile statements toward LGBTQ+ individuals. One anonymous coworker stated that Tyler had recently purchased a handgun for protection. The investigation gained momentum when patrol officers located the abandoned bicycle at Anderson Park, about 2 miles from the crime scene. Blood on the bicycle matched DNA from the crime scene. Surveillance footage from businesses along the route showed Tyler heading toward the northern part of the city. As dawn broke, the investigation expanded to involve federal assistance, with the FBI's Jackson field office being contacted due to the potential hate crime angle. Special Agent Robert Turner joined the investigation, bringing in additional resources, including access to national databases and specialized tracking tools. Detective Martinez's team continued their work systematically, interviewing Tyler's associates and tracking his financial activity. His debit card showed no transactions after the shooting, indicating limited resources. Cell phone records revealed his phone had been turned off shortly after he fled the scene, but not before making a brief call to a number in Pearl, Mississippi. The investigation revealed that Tyler had a distant cousin, Mark Davis, living in Pearl. Mark confirmed receiving a call from Tyler, but denied knowing his location. However, cell tower data indicated that Tyler was within a 3-mile radius of his cousin's residence. By late afternoon, the investigation had put significant pressure on Tyler's limited support system. Local businesses, community groups, and social media helped amplify the search, making it harder for him to move undetected. The Jackson Police Department set up a dedicated tip line, which received over 100 calls within the first 6 hours. The search involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including Jackson PD, Pearl PD, Hinds County Sheriff's Department, and the FBI. K-9 units were deployed to areas where Tyler had been spotted, and tactical teams monitored locations where he might hide. The manhunt concluded on March 17th, roughly 36 hours after Kiara Matthews' murder. Acting on an anonymous tip, task force members found Tyler hiding in an abandoned storage unit near Pearl, Mississippi. The arrest was carried out by a combined team of Jackson Police Special Operations and FBI agents at 5:45 a.m. When arrested, Tyler appeared disheveled and exhausted. He had been surviving on snacks purchased before discarding his debit card and had not contacted family or friends. Officers noted he showed no resistance during the arrest and simply stated, "I knew you'd find me eventually." A search of the storage unit revealed that Tyler had been sleeping on cardboard boxes and had made no preparations for long-term evasion. Detective Sarah Martinez and Special Agent Robert Turner conducted the initial interrogation at Jackson Police Department headquarters. The interview, starting at 8:30 a.m., was recorded on video and audio. Before questioning began, Tyler was informed of his Miranda rights and signed a waiver to proceed without an attorney. During the first hour of questioning, Tyler gave a detailed account of his interactions with Kiara. He spoke about their online conversations, focusing on his attraction to her photos and personality. He maintained that he never suspected she was transgender, despite investigators later noting that he had never asked about her background during their chats. The most crucial part of his confession came when Tyler described the moments before the shooting. According to the transcript, he said, "When I realized she was transgender, something inside me snapped. I felt humiliated, angry, betrayed. I wasn't thinking clearly. The gun was right there in my backpack, and before I knew it, I had pulled it out." Tyler's description of shooting Jessica Matthews showed a disturbing escalation of violence. He admitted to shooting her simply because she was a witness, saying, "I didn't want to shoot her. She just came in at the wrong time, and I panicked. I couldn't let there be any witnesses." This statement would later help establish premeditation for the attempted murder charge. During the interrogation, Tyler showed signs of cognitive dissonance, attempting to justify his actions while expressing remorse. He repeatedly used phrases like, "She should have told me," and "any man would have reacted the same way," indicating a lack of understanding of the gravity of his actions. A psychological evaluation conducted by Dr. Linda Thompson concluded that Tyler was competent to stand trial. Her report noted that while he understood his actions, he showed deep-seated prejudices and could not fully accept responsibility for his choices. This assessment influenced the prosecution's decision to seek federal hate crime charges. Tyler's 6-hour confession gave investigators a clear timeline of events and his movements after the shooting. He described how he stole the bicycle, his route through the city, and his eventual decision to hide in Pearl. His detailed account helped confirm his statement with physical evidence and witness testimony. Most troubling was Tyler's apparent lack of awareness regarding the broader societal impact of his crime. When asked about the effect on the LGBTQ+ community, he said, "I didn't mean to make any kind of statement. This was personal." This disconnect between his personal emotions and the wider implications of his crime would become a key theme in the trial. The confession ended with Tyler expressing concern for his future, asking about potential sentences and whether he could be placed in protective custody. His final recorded statement, "I wish I had just walked away," would later be cited by prosecutors as evidence of his awareness of the alternative choices he could have made. The legal proceedings against Tyler Davis began on June 12, 2023, at the Hinds County Courthouse in Jackson, Mississippi. District Attorney Robert Anderson led the prosecution team, while Tyler was represented by Public Defender Michael Stewart. The charges included first-degree murder, attempted murder, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and federal hate crime enhancements. The prosecution's case focused on several key factors: the premeditated nature of the crime, as evidenced by Tyler bringing a weapon to the date, the brutal nature of the shooting, and the attempted murder of Jessica Matthews as a witness elimination attempt. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Thompson began the trial by presenting the jury with the devastating effects of Tyler's actions on the Matthews family and the broader LGBTQ+ community. Medical examiner Dr. Robert Wilson gave detailed testimony about Kiara's injuries, using forensic evidence to show that the shooting was intentional. His testimony was particularly impactful when he explained that the first shot was aimed at Kiara's heart, suggesting a deliberate, controlled response rather than a panicked one. This contradicted the defense's argument about emotional distress. Jessica Matthews provided powerful testimony from her wheelchair, still recovering from her injuries. She recalled hearing her sister's final moments in Tyler's calculated attempt to eliminate her as a witness. Her testimony was particularly compelling when she described Tyler's calm demeanor when he turned the gun on her, stating, "He wasn't out of control. He was making sure there would be no witnesses." The defense, led by Stewart, centered on what they called a trans-panic defense, arguing that Tyler's discovery of Kiara's transgender identity triggered an extreme emotional response. They brought in psychologist Dr. James Parker, who testified about acute stress reaction and temporary insanity. However, this defense faced significant challenges when the prosecution presented evidence of Tyler's previous anti-LGBTQ+ statements to coworkers. Tyler's testimony began to fall apart when he could not provide a convincing explanation for bringing the weapon to the date. District Attorney Anderson effectively demonstrated the inconsistencies between Tyler's claims of emotional distress and his methodical actions during and after the crime. The trial took an unexpected turn after 4 days of testimony when Tyler agreed to a plea deal. The deal, negotiated between the prosecution and defense, included several provisions. Tyler would plead guilty to first-degree murder and attempted murder, while the prosecution would not pursue federal hate crime charges, which could have led to additional penalties. Judge Kendra Matthews, known for her careful consideration of legal precedent and community impact, presided over the plea hearing. Before accepting the plea, she required Tyler to provide a full account of his actions in open court. His statement, delivered under oath, revealed details that further undermined his initial claims of panic. The sentencing hearing on July 3, 2023, drew significant media coverage. The courthouse was filled with members of the LGBTQ+ community, advocates, and supporters of the Matthews family. Victim impact statements were delivered by Maria Matthews, Kiara's mother, and Jessica Matthews, who spoke about the profound loss of their loved one and the enduring physical and emotional pain they had endured. Judge Matthews made an impactful statement before announcing the sentence. She specifically addressed the broader consequences of the crime, asserting, "This court cannot and will not accept the notion that discovering someone's gender identity justifies a violent reaction. Such thinking fosters a culture of fear and discrimination that has no place in our society." The final sentence reflected both the gravity of the crime and the judge's consideration of various factors: 50 years in prison, with 20 years suspended, 30 years to be served, followed by 5 years of supervised release. The sentence also included mandatory participation in anti-bias counseling and mental health treatment programs during incarceration. In the months after Tyler Davis's sentencing, The impact of Kiara Matthews' murder continued to be felt throughout Jackson and beyond. Jessica Matthews, after undergoing extensive physical therapy at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, founded the Kiara Matthews Foundation. This organization was dedicated to supporting transgender individuals in healthcare professions and advocating for LGBTQ+ safety in dating situations. The foundation's first initiative, launched in January 2024, created a scholarship program for transgender individuals pursuing careers in healthcare. Funded by community donations and corporate sponsorships, the program aimed to fulfill Kiara's dream of making healthcare more inclusive and representative. Within the first 3 months, the foundation raised over $150,000 and awarded 5 scholarships to aspiring healthcare professionals. Jessica's recovery journey became intertwined with her advocacy work. Despite enduring permanent mobility limitations from her injuries, she emerged as a powerful advocate for change, speaking at medical conferences and community events about the intersection of healthcare, transgender rights, and violence prevention. Her testimony before the Mississippi State Legislature in support of expanded hate crime protections gained national attention and sparked renewed discussions about legislative reform. The Jackson Medical Training Institute, where Kiara had earned her certification, implemented new diversity and inclusion training for all students and staff. The institute also established the Kiara Matthews Excellence in Healthcare Award, which is presented annually to a student who shows exceptional commitment to patient care and community service. In response to criticism about their historical treatment of crimes against transgender individuals, local law enforcement agencies underwent mandatory sensitivity training. The Jackson Police Department established a specialized LGBTQ+ liaison unit staffed by officers trained to handle cases involving gender identity and sexual orientation. This unit became a model for other departments throughout the Southeast. The Matthews family channeled their grief into advocacy. James and Maria Matthews became outspoken supporters of transgender rights, sharing their journey of accepting and supporting their daughter. Their story, featured in several national publications, helped other families navigate similar experiences. Maria, drawing on her background as a nurse, created support groups for parents of transgender children in Mississippi. The community's response to the tragedy resulted in tangible changes. Local businesses and organizations adopted non-discrimination policies, and several major employers in Jackson expanded their healthcare coverage to include transgender-specific medical care. The Greater Bethlehem Temple Church, where the Matthews family attended, established support groups for LGBTQ+ individuals and their families, marking a significant shift in religious community involvement.